What is going on, guys? Today I got a juicy Necromancer build I want to show you. So without further ado, let's head right into our race. Our race of choice here will be Khajiit. Yes, we are a kitty cat, but the other race that I definitely do recommend if you're not a cat is a Dark Elf. Dark Elf would work almost as good as Khajiit here. They're honestly interchangeable. If you're a Dark Elf, don't worry. Other races that can work, but are not as good as Khajiit or Dark Elf, or something like High Elf, Imperial, Wood Elf. Alright, for attributes here, we put 54 points into Mag here, 10 points into health, and 0 into stamina. This allows us to get 24,000 max Magicka. We hit our barrier to entry with our 30,000 max health, and we have 16k stamina. Mag recovery is 1200, with our stamina recovery being 1200 as well. Our weapon and spell damage being 3300, our spell critical being 26%, and our penetration being 5k, with our physical and spell resist being 16k, and our crisp being critical resistance being 1300. Our stats fully buffed up will be 5200 spell damage, 38% crit, 2000 mag recovery, and 1600 stamina recovery with 25k spell and physical resistance. We are running Rallying Cry, by the way, so that's why our crit resist is so low. So just keep that in mind. For the Mundus, you have to run the Shadow with this build. The reason for that is because we are running a crit build, and the Shadow is just by far the best Mundus stone to do that. And I just think it's one of the best Mundus stones in the games, hands down. Our food of choice, we can run Smoke Bear Haunch here, or Juicer Missile if you're a poor peasant. If you're a poor peasant, don't worry, Juicer Missile will do you just fine. It's just slightly worse than Smoke Bear Haunch, but don't worry. Vampire Sage 3 is a must for every PvP build, and that is just simply because of this amazing passive right here, on death. Reducing your damage taken up to 30% based on your missing health is just one of the best passive in the entire game. And you can never PvP without it. If you are griefing yourself, because you will be at a massive disadvantage. Our crit damage is 48%, goes up by 10% when we get Minor Force, and our critical healing is 48% as well, with a flat 5% healing. Onto our sets here. For our first monster piece set here, it is one Baron, the extra mag, and stamina recovery. I chose this just because I wanted a bit extra sustain. It's very nice. I like the extra stam and mag recovery. It does help our stam sustain quite a bit. Just having that one slot of juicy stam right there just helps us to roll block more and use our skills a bit more. And I just think you have to run the sustain monster set here. It just really ties the whole build together. For our mythic of choice, it will be Sea Serpent Coil. What can I say? This mythic is totally busted, and you should definitely be running this. If you don't like the 40% snare that this, or you can run Death Dealer's Fate instead of Sea Serpent Coil if you want to get rid of the snare, but it doesn't give you as much damage, so it's up to you. But that's the other mythic I would recommend running if you don't want to run Sea Serpent Coil. But Sea Serpent Coil is too good to pass up just because it gives you that major berserk and major courage, increasing your damage done by 10%, and you get a juicy 430 weapon and spell damage. The set really amplifies your damage and allows you to pump those big, juicy numbers. And then for our front bar, we're running the Master Inferno Staff. I am aware that they did change staffs this patch, so Inferno is no longer as good as it used to be. But sadly, you do have to run Inferno still, just simply because you need the knockback from Flame Clench, and the only way to get Flame Clench is to run the Inferno Staff. Lightning does technically do more damage, I am aware, but you do still need to run the Inferno. Plus, with the heavy attack, it's not super bad. You do get a decent dot. So you want to heavy attack more with the Inferno Staff since you do get a nice dot now. So just keep that in mind when you're using it. What does the Master Inferno Staff actually do? Well, whenever you use Destructive Touch, so this skill right here, Destructive Clench, you get 600 weapon and spell damage for 4 seconds. I might be saying 4 seconds isn't long enough, but trust me, that is plenty of time since you will be weaving this pretty much every second auto attack. When you're on the offensive, you just Flame Clench them to get the boost, and Flame Clench does do a decent amount of damage, 3300. 4 seconds of 600 weapon and spell damage is more than enough if you use it properly, so don't worry about that. For the trait I recommend is Sharpened, and then I like the Absorb Stamina enchant here. Now this is kind of weird because we are a mag build. This is just so we can use our Venom Skull more when we're on the offensive, but poisons can definitely work here. I definitely recommend poisons always if you can run them, since they are just better than enchantments in my opinion. So if you do have the money, you can go poisons here, but if you're cheap or poor, then the Absorb Stamina enchantment is the way to go. Could rock the Absorb Magicka enchantment here instead, but I just don't think it's better than the Stam one for this build. And then Sharpen for the most damage. You could go Infused here as well for a bit more consistent damage, but Sharpen is just better overall. And then Rallying Cry, our back bar, one of the best sets in the game still. When Battle Spirit is active, you can heal yourself and gain 300 weapon and spell damage, and you gain 1600 critical resistance for 20 seconds. This is very, very good because this allows you to be extremely tanky while pushing for basically as much damage as possible. This allows you to run Divines onto your armor, which allows you to push more damage into your build. I definitely recommend using the Rallying Cry here. Make sure it's a Frost Staff too, by the way, just simply because you get the block bonus here from Destruction Staff. Flipping an Ice Staff reduces the cost of blocking by 36%, increase the amount of damage you can block by 20%. Too good on the back bar to ever pass up. It's like Sword and Shield, super good. The traits I recommend are Powered or Defending. I personally always prefer Powered on the majority of my builds, but Defending is also just as good. So just choose whichever one you're more comfortable with and just go with that. And for the back bar, I have Absorb Magicka enchant here just to increase my Magicka sustain on my back bar. You could run Poisons once again here as well, or even a Weapon Damage Glyph so you get some more healing. But I just found that I prefer the Restore Magicka here on my back bar. It just fits better with my playstyle. But feel free to experiment with whatever enchantment you want. It's totally up to you. And for our last set here, we are running Wrath. Order's Wrath is just one of the best sets, I think, to run on the 5-piece body here. It's super good. It gives you just crit, weapon damage, crit, and then another crit, and then increases your critical damage and critical healing by 8%. This not only increases your overall damage, but your survivability, and crit is always nice to have. And then for our jewelry here, we are running 1 reduced cost, all infused glyphs here with 2 Magicka or 2 spell damage glyphs here. Now you can run 2 reduced cost glyphs. I have flopped back between 2 reduced cost or 2 spell damage glyphs here, and I just feel like it comes down to personal preference. If I'm open world like in Cyrodiil, I will definitely run 2 reduced cost glyphs on this build, but if I'm 1v1ing or even in Battlegrounds, I don't think you need it. But in open world, I definitely would recommend running it, just simply because the extra sustain in open world goes a long way. Since you're in a longer fights, you're more outnumbered, and I definitely would favor more sustain in those scenarios. So if you are doing more open world stuff, then I would actually slot 2 reduced Magicka cost glyphs here instead of 2 spell damage glyphs. But feel free to experiment with whatever you like. And then for our armor here, we're running 2 medium on our boots and our hand. And then for our armor here, we're running 3 medium, all divines on our boots, hand, helmet here. Divines, all prismatic here. 1 light, divines, prismatic, and then 3 heavy, reinforced, prismatic on our chest, shoulders, and legs. The reason why I chose this setup is because I just find it strikes the right balance between defense and offense. I definitely recommend 100% getting a heavy piece on the chest and a light here, and then a medium piece on the hands. Those are a must. And then if you want, you can experiment with the helmet, shoulders, legs, and feet more. But I definitely would recommend always having a heavy chest, light waist, and medium hands no matter what. If you don't have the money to get the prismatic glyphs on all your pieces, then you should get them on the big pieces, which are your helmet, chest, and your legs here, and then just get max Magicka glyphs on your smaller pieces until you can afford it. I know you're broke, and it does suck. Onto our skills here. Flame Clench, like I mentioned earlier, this pairs with our Master Staff. Basically, Flame Clench is the one and only stun we have on this build. It's a very good stun, so don't worry, you are covered completely. And I like to use this by weaving in my auto attacks, or to always make sure I have my 600 weapon and spell damage up. If I'm going to switch to my back bar, I will also try and Flame Clench before I switch so I can heal for more. So there are definitely ways you can get around it to keep that weapon and spell damage up for as much as possible. Elemental here just for the major breach, and passive 7.5 seconds. The enemy is afflicted with the burning, chilled, and concussive status effect. It's just so good, and it's a free ability. I love free things, so I really like running this skill. It's amazing in my opinion. Stalking Blast Bones. This ability is insane for damage. This thing can hit like a freight train, especially since it can go up to 50% more damage, and then it can crit on top of that. So this thing is hitting some insane numbers sometimes, and since Flame Clench knocks them back, it will increase the damage of Blast Bones because it's taking longer to get to them. So it's a nice little synergy here between Flame Clench and Blast. Venom Skull here. Now the reason why I chose this one over the Magic, and that is because every third cast of this ability deals 50% increased damage. While slotted, casting any Necromancer ability while you're in combat will count towards the third cast. So this means this is super good for a burst because you'll be casting Blast Bones, that's 1. It will be casting Mortal Coil, that's 2. And if you use Venom Skull once, then that's the 3rd cast. So it allows you to line up some really nasty bursts. It's very good for comboing. So for example, before the Blast Bone hit, usually this will be at the 3rd stack. Then you go for the Auto Flame Cleanse, then your weapon and spell damage will apply to your Blast Bones. It will also apply to the Venom Skull, and it will also apply to our ultimate, the Colossal here. This got a buff, I believe this pat, but it now applies major vulnerability to all enemies hit for 17 seconds, increasing their damage taken by 10%. This is very good because now you will basically have 10% more increased damage to your enemies that you are fighting almost all the time, because 17 seconds is a very long time. And it's a massive AoE, so keep that in mind. You're applying this to a big area. The vast majority of your opponents that you are fighting will have major vulnerability on them, which will increase your damage to them by 10%. And then we have Mortal Coil here. This is very good. This has an insane heal. It's free. Free things are good. And you restore 170 Magicka and stamina every 2 seconds while siphoning a corpse. This skill really does it all. It's free. That's really good. Good heal over time, and it gives you sustain. Very good skill. Then we have Resistance Flesh, an amazing burst heal. Not only does this heal you for a good chunk, but you grant the target spell and physical resistance equal to half the amount healed for 3 seconds. This is very good at keeping you alive in tight situations, since this thing crits, since we are running about 40% crit chance, has a 1 in 2 chance to crit. This crits, and it hits for like 10, 12k on a crit, and then you have 6,000 extra resistances for 3 seconds. And that just allows you just to be super tanky. And have the extra survivability. That's another reason why I like Powered on Necromancer, because Power, it also amplifies the physical and spell resistance it gives you. And then we have Race Against Time. This will be our main force of Major Expedition. It removes all snares. Very good. And it grants us Minor Force for 20 seconds, increasing our critical damage done by 10%, which is super good since we are running a crit build. Resolving Vigor, heal over time, grants us Minor Resolve. Nothing else. Spirit Guardian, great heal over time. You get 10% damage reduction while it's active, so massive. And then Summoner's Armor gives you your form of Major Resolve, and it reduces the cost of Blast Bone, Skeleton Mage, and Spirit Mender by 15% while it is active, giving us extra sustain, so that's very welcome. And then for our ultimate here, running Temporal Guard. This is just simply for the minor protection. You can run whatever ultimate you want. If you want to be a giant bonehead, you can be Bone Goliath, Reanimate, whatever ultimate you want can go here. I just like this for the minor protection it gives me, giving me that extra tankiness, which I very much like. Another thing I should mention, because it's extremely important, is we are running Spell Power Potion. This is very important. You have to run these for this build. This is what gives us Major Prophecy and Sorcery. This restores 7,000 Magicka as well, but you have to run these for the build, so please keep that in mind. If you are not running these, you are not running the build correctly. And since we are running those types of potions, you will sadly need to grind out Alchemy for this passive right here. When using potions, resulting effect lasts 30% longer. So this passive is extremely important, and it's extremely important that you use these potions. This is what gives us our Major Sorcery and Prophecy. Onto our CP. Our CP here, I recommend Ironclad for more tankiness. Fighting Finesse, we are our crit build. While running this for more damage. Increase your damage done with direct damage. Pretty much all the damage you have is direct damage. Increase your damage with area effect by 6%. This is like Blast Bones in your ultimate, which is your main damaging. If you don't want to run something like Ironclad or Fighting Finesse, you can run Focus Mending for some healing. So this is generally what I would recommend running. This is a good balance between damage and survivability. For the red tree here, I recommend Pain Refuge, Sustain by Suffering, Relentless, and Survival Instinct. This will always be a negative effect on you in PvP. Pain Refuge will always be up pretty much 100% of the time, and same for Sustain by Suffering. This gives you a nice chunk of recovery for mag and stam, and this gives you some juicy damage reduction, which is desperately needed out there in the PvP zone, so make sure you are slotting both of these. Relentless here, the reason why I run this is just because whenever you get feared or stunned, you gain major protection for 3 seconds, reducing your damage taken by 10%. This is an absolutely lifesaver passive. Might not seem like a lot, but 10% is a lot, just because this is when you'll be taking the majority of the burst, since you'll not be able to block, roll, or cast any skills when you're getting CC'd. So you want to reduce that damage as much as possible. Not only that, but this is generally when players will try and unload their load on you. So that 10% damage reduction is super. Survival Instinct here, this effect reduces all your core combat skills by 25%. Very good for your overall sustain. For the green tree here, I recommend Gifted Rider, War Mount, Rationer, Liquid Efficiency, and Breakfall. Now the way you want to play this build is make sure all your buffs are active on your back bar. This is Race Against Time, Bigger, Spirit Guardian, and Summoner's Armor. Make sure your potion is up once again 100% of the time, since this is giving us our Major Prophecy and Savagery, so you can see without the potion active, these are our stats. And when we pop it, we get more spell damage and crit, so it's very important that you have this up 100% of the time. And then when you go for fighting your opponent, make sure you always have Elemental on them. Once your first Blast Bones hit, then you want to immediately suck it to Mortal Coil Heal to get the healing and the extra sustain. And then basically you just auto attack Blast Bones until you get a window, and just use Flame Clench in between Blast Bones and Venom Skulls to get the 600 weapon and spell damage up as much as possible. The combo you want to aim for to the one-shot people is you want to go for the Blast Bones, go for this, go for the ultimate here, and then you just want to Flame Clench them into the ultimate. If you can time it perfectly, when you ult and the Blast Bone hit and you can Flame Clench them into your Colossal, you will absolutely one-shot somebody while spamming Venom Skull. We'll do an insane amount of damage, as I will showcase here. Our Blast Bone here is doing about 16k without critting. Goes up to 50% more damage, so this thing can theoretically hit about 22k without critting. You have 16k, 22k, and then you have the ultimate, which is 12k a hit, which will then go up to 13k a hit, so you can get up to roughly about 40 to 50,000 without critting. And since we have basically a 1 in 2 chance to crit, and when we do crit, our crits hit for 110% of the damage, because we have 58% critical damage, and the base crit value in this game is 50%. Your damage can get extremely high very fast, and it can definitely one-shot a lot of players. If you guys did enjoy this video, it would mean a lot to me. Hit that like button and subscribe. If you guys do have any questions regarding the build, I'd be happy to answer any questions down in the comments below. And with that, I hope you guys all have a fantastic day.